As I sit here drawing what feels like my last breaths, my breathing is heavy with what sounds like a trash disposable unit in the kitchen. My magic is sustaining me as we speak, and I should have been dead probably long ago. I write to you now the last chapter of this story and what may be my last tale, which is a detailed foresight in the final conflict to come. Know that when I write such tales they have a tendency of coming true, as they did in 2004 when the tsunami struck Indonesia, and again in 2018 when the Hawaiian volcanoes erupted. John, realizing his power and angry at the way the world has reacted towards his awakening to power with fear. He grasped to understand why. Don't they realize it was him that averted the head-on collision with the asteroid in 2016 that slammed into Jupiter rather than Earth when it suddenly changed course near Saturn? Or the micro-black hole that collapsed and formed from that same object and almost destroyed the entire solar system had he not used the technology left here by the ones who had created this planet to stop this disaster. Their technology holds this system in the neutral state of flux it is currently in. And don't they realize that when their negligence killed his grandchildren in a ploy to break his will, that in his anger it was he that created the greatest storm of the century, Hurricane Irma, which formed merely after their deaths? No, I suppose they don't, just as their negligence allow me to return home from the hospital with a deathly illness, like phenomena with nothing more than antibiotics, correct? Now mankind is upon the brink of war, but little do they realize that those whom that technology derived from and embedded within those systems like ghosts in the machine are hovering even now above our atmosphere, the true designers of this world, God and his archangels. Here already on the planet, however, are those who were left to guard over the nations and people as time went on, while he left to design the other species of the universe. Lucifer and his angels, the gods, genetically augmented humans who housed these deities within their augmented straits. Heimdall was the first to have enough of watching these events unfold and came down to stop the antagonists from bringing about their utopian destruction, and went after their general Aster of the Nargolian behemoth. Their swords clashed and sparks flew as the trans-dimensional traveler Heimdall fought the Juggernaut. He took flight and came down on Astaroth, burying him in a 6 feet deep crater, separating all his augmented genes with rock and stone in the process. As he stood in victory, Heimdall heard a distinct click behind him as the chaos blades of the spirit sword crashed through every plane of existence and splitting his mind's eye that watched over all realms from there. The swords flew in a flurry of wind, slicing him to pieces on every plane, and the last thing he saw was Lucifer standing over him as the darkness drew in. Odin, believing that Lucifer had gone rouge and falling to Samael and Sargon, called upon Meggido, his father Zeus, and informed him of Heimdall's fall. Meggido retrieved the chains from their place and hurried off to try and stop Lucifer before this got any further, but in his rush forgot what they were holding there and did not know that Fenrir had been watching the events unfold thanks to Lucifer's warnings. He stood poised and ready, and as soon as the chain were loose, Fenrir did not hesitate. He lunged for Odin first. I have waited long for this, Allfather, as he lashed and ripped Odin to shreds before any of the other gods had time to react. Loki stood as Hera slowly climbed up where she had been held all those years, falsely imprisoned by Aphrodite's lies. Now it begins, the end of all things, as she snapped her fingers and they disappeared into the darkness. In Italy, inside the Sistine Chapel, a lone figure stood, hooded and solemn, gazing over and over the works around him as if trying to find a missing piece within a puzzle. Search all you want, Raphael. The one answer you're looking for you'll never find here, because you search for a lie. There in the archway stood Azazel with a tattered piece of cloth in his hands. Well, brother, that explains how you are able to enter a house of God unabated. You know then. Raphael's halberd spearhead blade slid into a readied position. You mean the fact that you've withheld all those who stood against you with me, children or not, through a curse you placed upon us by the blood of my slaughtered son, Azrael? Azazel wasted no time and drew his spear blade as he lunged at the former god Apollo. The clash of their blades shattered every glass object within a mile radius, yet was so high-pitched no one with human ears perceived its sound. His transcendenced form told me of it, you could say. In fact, you just met him. He became the blade I wielded now when I lifted him off of the rock you impaled him on. A slight smile in the corner of Azazel's mouth appeared before a flurry of blinding strikes in various places around the chapel almost at once erupted before a slight pause, neither for hurt or tired. Your vanity will be the best of you, brother, just as our father had said, for I now see the end of this conflict as plain as the day this place was made. Raphael feigned an attacking rush, prompting Azazel to move, catching him off guard, and spun the inertia of their collision around, impaling Azazel upon the unfinished piece of the Sistine Chapel's roof. His blackened blood streaming down Raphael's spear hilt, he choked. You forget, brother. I do not fight alone. Suddenly the phantasm spirit of Azrael appeared out of the tip of Azazel's weapon and gripping Raphael as he pulled him back upon the axe like grooves of the spear. Azazel drove the hilt through the concrete, securing his impaled fate close to him. Azazel whispered into his ear, now join us in death, brother, and let justice truly be done. There was a bright light like that of an atomic bomb that could be seen for miles, yet none were harmed. After the glow abated, people gathered more at the chapel's entrance, pointing at the ceiling. The burned into the stone in the unfinished masterpiece of Michelangelo were the outlines of what was once Raphael, also known as Apollo, Azazel, also known as Nyx, and his son Azrael. Across the world in America, John stood awaiting for the metro train to come at the station in San Francisco. He pretended to remain unaware, but the unmistakable sensation of the cold, stale breeze of death's presence had consumed the entire station. John spun around and said, you know, you couldn't sneak up on a corpse with a vibe like that, my friend. Death waited and exchanged no words, pushing him with the hilt of his scythe onto the tracks as the train rushed past, and people screamed, thinking John had slipped onto the oncoming train. The chain of cars screeched to a halt and the last car passed slowly by where he fell. Suddenly John appeared from a wisp of ethereal clouds and grabbed hold of Death, yanking him into the mortal realm as he crossed back over with him. This is going to hurt you much more than it will me, old friend. And the two exchanged a series of blinding blows as John produced the legendary demi-urge soul swords from what seemed like nowhere. Able to cross and cause damage in any plane to any being in those planes, Death had nowhere to retreat and no choice but to face him. Death tried to get distance by retreat backward, but John leapt onto the front of the next passing train in pursuit, singingly in an insane ensemble of clashing blows and what sounded the tune O Fortuna being sung by John as they rushed through the tunnels heading towards Oakland. Realizing his attention was focused on the direction of his scythe, Death flung his scythe upward over the bay and John followed along its path. Realizing he'd been fooled, John gripped the side of the bay bridge, hanging by both hands as his swords fell into the bay. Death appeared above him with scythes in hand, ready to sever John's head clean, but not before John grabbed him by his loincloth and pushed him into the material world once again, into the path of a passing bus, ending the battle with the words, and thus even Death may die, as he released his hold on the bridge, plummeting into the bay water's depths to retrieve his sword. The demi-urge blades, forged by an unknown sword maker 6,500 years ago and hidden within the Fountain of Youth in the regions of swampland of Louisiana. The waters of eternal life held the blades from decay, as that the wielder of the blades could only be one who could wield the mass of thousands of souls at once on a constant basis, for that is what it takes to hold such a sword. The energy of thousands of souls must be fed into the hilt constantly. Something only a demon master sage could accomplish. Otherwise it would consume whoever wielded it completely.